Hello and welcome to the Visionless Designs YouTube channel, the channel where you get to see all the things I can't. So today I figured I'd have a go over my dust extraction in the workshop. I've had a few people querying on how I do it, so I figured I'd explain how I've done everything, because if I'm honest, it's all been a bit of an experiment with my setup. I have a bit of a abnormal setup, not really what most people have in their workshops. So I've had a lot of different goes at trying different methods, and I was going to go over that in this video now. So if we go back to the beginning, when I first decided to get an extractor, I knew I was getting this one here. It's a 3 horsepower one, which is small enough to fit in but powerful enough to do all the equipment I've got. And what I originally wanted was to have 200mm ducting throughout the entire workshop, because that's what this does. It's either one 200mm connector or 3 100mm. The bigger the ducting you have, the more power it keeps as it goes through. The problem with this for me was, though, the layout of my workshop made it very confusing as to how I'd actually do it, and with the size it would have been a very big expense to get wrong. So the company eventually decided to give me the 200mm ducting kit to do the whole workshop, so I can figure it out then, and at a later date experiment with bigger ducting. So I'll go over how this actually connects to everything in here. As you can see here, though, as we start, I've got solid connected to the extractor going up to a 45 and then a 90. That is where things are a bit weird, because that's not really what you want, but it's the only way I can get it. First off, the splitter that I mentioned earlier actually ended up being pretty useful, because as you can see here, I've got the 2 bottom ones that are connected up to my bandsaw, which is right next to it here. Then here I've got, this is another one I tend to use if I've got the thickness planer moved up this end, or if I'm using my grinder box, because I need 3 different pipes for that. So the 2 bottom ones will be used for that, and then that one will as well. And at the top here we've got the solid ducting to the rest of the workshop. At the top here then, we come to the first major unconventional part of this setup. So as you can see here, we've got the solid ducting direct from the extractor to a 45-degree angle, which then immediately goes to a 90, which then goes down the rest of the workshop. So originally I did a flexi pipe off the extractor to the 90-degree angle, but we found after a while that this caused a major restriction in the airflow, so we swapped the flexi out for solid ducting and put a 45-degree angle in, and this improved the airflow down the rest of the pipe. So that's something to think about. The angles do make a difference, and you want as little flexi as possible. Here we are at the middle of the workshop then, following on from the weird angles at the other end. So here I've got 2 Y splitters. The first one splits down to this one here. This goes down to the drum sander when I'm using that, or the thickness planer. So have it come down from the ceiling so it literally sits directly above the drum sander. This is retractable ducting, so as it sucks, makes the pipe smaller to give better suction. So we've got the blast gate there. As we go on, it splits off again immediately. One going off to the side with blast gate. This section goes to my drill press, and the section that carries on to the other end of the workshop has a blast gate here as well. So the reason I've got this one here is so that I'm not wasting suction, like it having to go all the way to the other end. It basically cuts this off to keep the suction dedicated to either the drum sander and planer or the drill press. So they're all sectioned off individually to keep the suction as powerful as possible for each individual one. If we follow the ducting along now to the drill press, you'll see that I immediately change from the Y splitter to a 45-degree angle to get a 90. This again helps to keep things going straight. As we come along here, you'll see I ran out of rigid ducting, unfortunately, so I had to put in a section of flexi, which then, as we get to this big pain in the butt beam here, I've reduced it to a 63mm and gone over the top of it to the drill press itself. So a key thing to note here is, when I first did this, I had this rigid pipe, 4-inch piping, going straight to the wall, so it would have gone down below the beam and then back up again. And that caused more of a reduction in the suction than having the smaller pipe on top. So you want to reduce the bends as much as possible. Again, having a U here reduced it massively, so it's better to go smaller and go over it to keep it straighter. And of course it gets to the drill press over there, which we use for either cleaning things up or the drill press itself, or it actually goes across to my chop saw if the hoover is being used for other things. This flexible pipe here did actually used to be a 5-metre long pipe, but I found I had too much excess left over for the machines, so I actually ended up cutting it into 2, which ended up being useful for different things around the workshop. I've actually got it hung up here, so it's just a quick unhook and go. And as I said, because it's retractable, it literally sits on top of the machine like that and naturally pulls itself to the minimum size it needs to actually reach the extraction, which helps with the airflow quite a lot. Following on from the middle section then, as we come along to the end of the workshop, I have a 90-degree angle going down to a Y splitter. The top one connects to the big mouth dust hood I have here. So I use this for the lathe here. It's got the other half of the flexi pipe that I cut off. I might shorten it, but for now it's fine. It means I can move this along the lathe comfortably to catch the dust as I'm going. And then the bottom pipe just below it here. Whoop, nope, you're here. There, found you. That goes off to my thickness planer. It's a 4-metre flexible pipe, so there is a problem with this. This is obviously at the furthest point from the dust extractor, so it's already weaker at this point. And then going off a 4-metre flexi, it is quite weak. So it's not something I want for big jobs, but if I just want to do a couple of little boards on the planing, then it's fine for that. Anything more than that, then it's more worthwhile to pull the planer out and actually set it up to do a big job. So I'm back at the dust extractor now. So for those interested, the total length of solid ducting I've got from where it leaves the extractor at this point here till the end point at the other end of the workshop is 9 meters. So obviously that's quite a long length of ducting. with the rigid, it does it relatively well. The bigger, the better. What actually made this a lot easier for me was getting this ducting kit. Originally, I was planning on having the ducting do an entire loop of the entire workshop, which would have been a lot of work, would have been a lot more piping going around everywhere. But having a straight line straight down the middle and just having small sections going off to the individual tools actually makes things a lot easier to set up and actually do a layout. So that's one thing that you may want to think about when trying to set up your own one. This pipe here, I am thinking of swapping this one solid section here out for a flexible ducting again, keeping the 45-degree angle on this time though, but swapping it for, again, flexi, but 5-inch flexi, so it's got more of a suction up to that point. And I'm going to see if that negates the restriction caused by having a flexi in. So you may be asking, why do I want to put flexi on the start of the extractor after I pointed out at the start it's a bad idea? Simple answer, how exactly do I move this around when that's on there? I'm in a very tight corner. This is the only place I can get this, so getting this on and off puts the whole ducting on quite a lot of strain. So doing any maintenance, like getting to the back of this thing, is a giant pain in the ass. So swapping it for a flexi would make that so much easier. So I'm going to have a go over, see if going to a 5-inch flexi will actually negate it. I'm hoping it will, because it's just going to make maintenance a lot easier without risking actually splitting any of the piping on this thing. Right, so I've gone on about you wanting as little flexible ducting as possible and how you want it as wide as possible. So I figured I might as well actually show the differences with them. So I'm going to connect everything up direct to the extractor here and show how they actually handle some dust I've got on the floor here, some chippings I've got. I'm going to start with a 1.5 meter long 32mm pipe, and then I'll move up from there. So go down and see how this hoovers up this mess here. Next up, we've got 50mm flexible ducting. This is 4 meters long. This actually, well, you'll see how this one does. Finally, I'm jumping straight up now to 125mm piping at 3 meters. I've topped up the sawdust pile. See how different this one is. So obviously I did the piping from directly at the machine, but what if I want to do it at the other end of the workshop? So I've got it now at the furthest point, and I'm going to do the same, 32, 50, and then the 125. Bearing in mind there is no benefit to having 125mm at this end of the ducting, as it's got to go through a 4" anyway. So yeah, we'll get onto that now and see how this manages here. Hopefully that demonstration gave a general idea of how the piping does. Obviously it will still pull up stuff, but it's the speed at which it pulls it up. Obviously the faster things get pulled into it, the more the dust is actually going to be taken away rather than put into the air. The closer to the machine is, the better. Far away, I'm not sure how well it came up in the video, but the suction rate, if you just touch it, is severely reduced. So sometimes with the thickness planer, as I said earlier, I have it on a 4-metre long pipe off the end, that does get bits stuck in the pipe, so you just need to jiggle the pipes around a bit. But again, this is how I've got it set up currently. I would like to, maybe-ish, thinking about it, swap the actual ducting down the workshop for 8" and then reduce it at 4" each point. But the main problem with that is getting things from this point here up to the roof and then down, because then I'd have to have a splitter sticking out here, which is 8", and then swapping it to all the other bits, which means I'd lose the distance here, which means I'd lose my bandsaw. So yeah, it's trying to find the correct compromises for what your workshop is capable of taking and what your tools need. So I hope this video has been helpful with things. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them below. Right, so thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out the website visionlessdesigns.com, where you find all the products I sell to help support the channel, as well as links to all my social media and Etsy store. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, which I don't know where it is anymore. Last time I checked it was over there. It's somewhere. Hopefully you can find it. And hopefully I'll see you in future videos.